Spring camp is over. We are headed into the summer offseason. What did we learn about the TCU Horned Frogs during their time on the practice field? We'll talk about that more next round. Locked on Horned Frogs. It's your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also find us on any podcast platform. We're free and available wherever it is you get your podcast. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. We're talking football today. Spring camp is wrapped up. They have gotten through that part of the offseason. We are now headed towards summer workouts and the beginning of fall camp starting here in a few months as we hurtle towards what's hopefully a bounce-back season for Sonny Dykes' crew. What did we learn about this team over the past month and a half? I have three takeaways from spring camp, and the first one is kind of philosophical, but it has to do with the defense and Andy Avalos and what he's brought to the table. Now, you did lose Dominic Williams, which is a huge loss. He's in the portal. He hasn't made a decision yet. He's gone on visits to Texas, Oklahoma. I believe LSU will be the last place he visits, and then he will make a decision on what his future holds. That's definitely a big loss in the middle. Now, I think with the aggressiveness that Avalos brings to the table, he doesn't expect three down linemen to get to the quarterback like Joe Gillespie did. There is less pressure on your interior defensive line to a certain degree, but games are always won up front. They're always won in the trenches, especially in the middle. And so you have to have defensive linemen who can reestablish line of scrimmage, maintain gap integrity, not get pushed off the ball in the run game, and then also push the pocket back and put pressure on the quarterback at times. And Dom was the best at doing that in the D-line room. That being said, I like the depth they have behind him. But going back to Andy Avalos and what he's brought to the table, I just feel like the players on defense are excited and bought in right now. And Joe Gillespie, I feel like as a coach, the team respected him. They liked him. I think towards the end of the season, you saw a defense that no longer believed in the scheme that they were running. They didn't believe in just sitting back and trying to keep things in front of them and rallying the football and a bend, don't break mentality that set the team back. TCU did not play complementary football very well last year. I feel like the offense also didn't always hold up to their end of the bargain. But in that Oklahoma game, that defense looked lost. And that was at the end of year two of a new system, a new schematic process. It wasn't working. They were still giving up big plays. They were getting gashed in the run game. And this new defense has given more opportunities and different opportunities to some players that we haven't heard a lot from over the past few seasons. Marcel Brooks' name has been mentioned a lot. Hopefully he's able to stay healthy and step into a new role as primarily a pass rusher in that stud linebacker role. They brought in some transfers who have done some impressive things coming off the edge. Lamarian James had a really good camp at the corner position, the corner from Old Dominion. He was very active in making plays. Travis Broughton and Avery Helm should be a good duo at those respective corner spots and locking down wide receivers. I think we're going to see a team that causes chaos, causes havoc, and puts a lot of pressure on Big 12 offensive lines that I don't feel like are going to be leaps and bounds better than what TCU is going to put on the field in the trenches. So there should be opportunities to create negative plays and takeaways, and I'm excited about what the defense is going to do this year. Now, that being said, there's going to be some hiccups. There will be some misassignments. The double-sided coin about bringing pressure is there's always a risk with that of giving up big plays in the back end, and I think we'll see more pressure on the secondary to step up and cover well, and they'll be on an island at times, and so that's always a risky proposition. But as I said before, I think what they were doing the past couple seasons wasn't working, and they were still having issues giving up explosive plays. Offenses were kind of doing what they wanted in a lot of ways. So what's the point of sitting back and not being an aggressive defense if you're still going to give up those splash plays that offenses kind of rely on in place of efficiency at times? I'm excited to see what they can cook up on that side of the ball. I think we're looking at a team that is bought in, that's singularly focused. You haven't seen just a mass exodus of players. Now, there are a few players I'll talk about in segment 2. One of them is Rohan Llewellyn, who made the transition from offense to defense. He's gone. They lost another corner in this portal window, and this portal window closes at midnight, by the way. So it's just something to watch. Champ Lewis, young corner, who didn't really crack the depth chart in his first few seasons at TCU, and so he's going to move on and go elsewhere. But honestly, the only player so far that has made his intentions known to move that I feel like is just a massive loss is Dominic Williams. And I think keeping the defensive staff together by maintaining and retaining Paul Gonzalez. They added Ken Wilson to the linebacker spot, and we've seen his influence already going and getting Keelan Abrams from DeSoto from a recruiting standpoint. They kept Jamarcus McFarland. They kept Carlton Buckles. So you had some of those guys in place to calm the storm, so to speak, and say, hey, don't just jump ship on us. Like, let's stay together here. We've got a new philosophy, but there's still a lot of the same parts that are interchangeable. And I think the defensive players are excited about the potential and what this defense can do. And I'm excited to see the final product when it hits the field in a few months against Stanford. My second main takeaway, and people disagree with me on this, and that's fine. I always want to hear from you in the YouTube comments, or you can tweet at me at SimcockSteven at Locked on TCU. I'm feeling good about this quarterback room. Now, I would like to see Haas Hanian on the field in some capacity this upcoming season, whether it's a special package, designated plays, to give him the chance to use that athleticism, use his feet to make things happen, be creative, get experience. I think that's all a plus for TCU. Josh Hoover, I feel like the intangibles, the leadership, all the things that you want your QB to be, he embodies that. And the team rallied around him last year. Now, it wasn't enough to get to a bowl game and fully turn that ship around, but they were more competitive in the back half of the season. They did win a few games against BYU and Baylor at home that were impressive. This year, can he take the next step? Can he be the leader of this team for 12 games? Can he go win on the road? Can he go pull off some upsets? Those were all things that TCU couldn't do last year, but I think he is the right guy to, in another year of the system, take a step forward, get on the same page with the skill players, and get this offense to a place where it's humming again, because that wasn't the case this past season. They put up a lot of yardage. They moved the ball well in between the 20s, but they also had drives that stalled out. They struggled in the red zone. All of that was a major issue for the Frogs. And the main thing was they just didn't score enough touchdowns. You got to put points on the board. You got to find a way to get in the end zone. And they couldn't do that this past year. And then Ken Seals makes a lot of sense as far as backup quarterback, veteran presence. And we saw him make some plays in the spring. Now, there were also interceptions. There were also times where the defense seemed to get the better of the offense. I think one thing to remember, too, and Tanner McKinney is one of our frequent listeners and YouTube viewers, mentioned this. He talked about how he was concerned, the offense really stalled out at times. When you're talking about practice 14, 15, 16, even though the offense is in year 2 of the system, I don't think they're running all the plays in the playbook. I feel like there's probably a base number of plays that they're trying to work on to get repetition, to execute well. So the more and more that the defense sees it in a good-on-good situation, which is basically just the starters versus the starters, their ability to read and react is heightening. It's getting better because they're seeing the same formations and the same plays on a daily basis, or at least 3 times a week. So by the end of spring camp, those defenders probably had a pretty good idea pre-snap what was coming. All right, they're going to go to this action. They're going to try to execute this play. And so they're flowing fast with the ball. They're also getting a better understanding of tactically what they're being asked to do on defense. And so they're catching up to the offense as the spring practice goes on. But I feel like this offense has the potential to be really good. My other big takeaway is I like what they have at the skill positions. I've talked about running back. It doesn't appear, we'll see what they do here. It doesn't appear like they're going to go after a running back in the portal. Maybe they add another young player who has some eligibility left that could just be an option, somebody with some athleticism and that you can use in multiple ways, both in the rushing game and in the passing attack. But I think they're probably going to keep it as is. And at receiver, Eric McAllister had a tough day in that open practice, open scrimmage, whatever you want to call it, the spring game, the Frogapalooza. But I'm not worried about him being successful. I really feel like he is primed to have a big year. I feel the same way about Savion Williams. They've got good threats on the slot receiver side of things with J.P. Richardson and JoJo Earl. This feels like a very balanced receiver room. Maybe there's not one true alpha player, but I feel like there's a good mix of possession receivers, guys with speed, hopefully some players who can stretch the field vertically and can make this a more complete offense in 2024. So that's my takeaways. I'll get more into questions that still need to be answered on Wednesday, and there's still roster construction happening. James Brockermeyer appears like he's going to be part of the fold, coming over from Alabama at the center position. So another interior offensive lineman being added to the roster. There's going to be a few more guys that leave. I don't know who. We should know those names in the next few days. As I said, the deadline to get the paperwork filled out that says, hey, I'm intending to enter the portal, that's tonight at midnight. And then it can take 24 to 48 hours for everything to be processed and for them to officially show up in the transfer portal. But that's what we're looking at. We have a clear timetable for when the roster attrition's going to happen. And so far, TCU has been able to stave that off for the most part. But a couple guys that have entered the portal, we'll talk about that next. It's Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. There's a new game out there for all you people that like to just play around on your phone. That sounded kind of strange. I'm sorry. If you enjoy playing games on your phone, Monopoly Go, you should download it today. You can download it in the Apple Store. You can download it on Google Play. Are you a competitive person? Like me, are you someone who used to ruin family game night as a child because you didn't handle losing super well? Is that a good quality? No, it's probably not a good quality, but some of us are just built like that. We can't help it. And if you want to feed that side of your personality, download the Monopoly Go app because you can compete against friends, against complete strangers. You can play on iconic Monopoly boards in a bunch of different situations and scenarios. You can charge rent on all the properties you own. You can become the biggest, baddest Monopoly tycoon out there. Monopoly Go, it's free on the Apple Store and on Google Play. You can also team up with friends if you want to indulge your team building side and try to build the Monopoly empire of your dreams. Monopoly Go, App Store, Google Play. Download it today. It's free. A new game that is sweeping the nation. I also want to tell you about our friends at Gametime. And I'm really happy with our friends at Gametime because I'll be at TCU Baylor, the baseball game, on Friday night in Waco. Be there with my son Bradley. Maybe a few other folks if you want to come by and say hi. And I was looking for tickets. So I got on the Gametime app, and I used that promo code, Locked On College. And I got $20 off, and it really saved me a lot of money. I got tickets in, I think it was like section 104, which is down the first base line. Should be good seats. I saw the view from my seat. I got 4 tickets. Excited to take my son out there. Excited to hang out with some friends on a Friday night, watch Peyton Tolley deal. Got that through the Gametime app. They have flash deals. They have last-minute deals, all sorts of savings. They tell you what the fees are going to be. Yeah, there's fees, but they give you the all-in price when you click on the ticket. So you don't have to wonder, oh, man, I thought I was paying $50. I get to check out. Suddenly it says it's $87. What the heck? That doesn't make any sense. Gametime, they make it simple. They make it clear-cut. Download the Gametime app. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Gametime. It's the place to go for tickets on the secondary market. A couple of TCU football players that have hit the portal. Both these guys, I would say, are depth pieces. They're players that haven't really cracked the starting rotation through the past few years. One name, Ezra Dotson Otade, who came over from Arizona in the transfer portal a few years ago. He was actually, in his high school days, he played at Lake Centennial High School, a DFW kid. Seems like a really good dude. And when he got here a few off seasons ago, I remember thinking, okay, it was the year before they made the run towards the national championship game. And I believe that was before Alan Ali made it to campus. So there was some thought that maybe he could compete for that starting center spot. That didn't happen. Colton Deary came in from Maryland. He ended up getting involved in the interior offensive line also. And, through the years, I think you've seen those past few seasons, like when there has been an opening, Ben Taylor Whitfield got a chance. Colton Deary got an opportunity. James Brockermeyer was just added to the roster. So Ezra's looking for a place to play. He's looking for a place where he's going to find a better path to playing time. Best of luck to him. Glad he got to be at TCU for a couple seasons. Just opportunity to go get some more playing time with the eligibility he has left. Another guy that hit the portal that, I understand it because it's kind of the same story, but it's disappointing to me. Rohan Flewellen, who's from Gilmer and was sort of a do-everything type of guy for the Buckeyes during his time there. I always have a soft spot for small school guys, maybe because I was a small school guy. And I wasn't an athlete like these guys are, but I'm just always intrigued by players who are very active on both sides of the ball in high school and where they could fit with that athleticism at the next level. He got here and he was committed as a receiver. It looks like recently he made the flip over the defense side of the ball and has been playing corner and safety. And, if you've been following what TCU's done this offseason, they added a lot of pieces right before the first portal window kind of closed in the secondary after Andy Avalos got hired. I think corner and wide receiver are two spots where, and I guess you could say this with offensive line too to a certain extent, but especially secondary and wide receiver, there's always going to be a lot of guys in the portal who have experience, who have some production from other schools. And so if you're a young player and you're trying to break through on the depth chart and find your place, it can be really difficult because each offseason now there's just a temptation to add, another third-year player, fourth-year player, and especially for Flewellen making that change. He played defense in high school, so it's not like he's totally not acclimated to it, but I'm sure there was still like some sort of learning curve there. And so now you're making that change. You're already kind of behind the eight ball in that you were playing a different position and you're trying to get up to speed. I guess it sort of evened out because you're learning your defense, but you're trying to get up to speed on technique. What are they asking of me here? And then TCU goes and adds a lot of players in the portal that have that experience coming in. And so it's just tough to sort of maneuver that. But again, I hope Flewellen and Dotson Otade find, better opportunity for them, a place where they can play. And those guys are both moving on though and hitting the portal. As far as what were they expected to do this upcoming season, though, they weren't guys that were really involved in the two deep. So I don't think it affects, what TCU is doing from the depth chart perspective too much. Before we move on, I do want to transition to basketball for a minute. TCU basketball, a lot of moving parts. The men's team, they've added Frankie Collins from Arizona State, Noah Reynolds from Green Bay, two guards who can really play. And then apparently they've been in on one of the big-time mid-major transfers, Trezarian White from UNC Wilmington. He averaged almost 20 points a game this past season and 7 rebounds a game. He's a forward. He can play that 3 or 4 position, really good size at 6'7". And, he's an electric scorer. He can do it in a lot of different ways. He can put the ball on the floor and get to the rim. He also shot really well from 3 last year. Had a huge jump in his three-point percentage from 28% in 2022 to almost 40% in 2023. And I've said, as the year wrapped up and we got closer to basketball season and building this thing, I've been pretty adamant, like TCU needs more shooting on the floor. They have to have it. So White could definitely provide that for him, along with a few of the players they brought in already. He's down to a final three. It's Baylor, TCU, and Mississippi State. So pretty competitive recruitment here. I know he's a local kid, but I think this would be a huge pickup for Jamie Dixon's squad if they could land him. Trezarian White, trying to get him from UNC Wilmington. Again, almost averaged 20 points a game last season. So really impressive year from him there for the Seahawks. We'll come back, wrap things up. It's Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team. We do it here every day. FanDuel, if you need a place to win some money, go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. You can make your first bet a winning bet. One $5 bet, get you $150 in bonus bets. Again, that's one $5 bet, and you get $150 in bonus bets. FanDuel, official betting partner of the NBA. NBA playoffs going on right now. NHL playoffs are also happening. Major League Baseball is in full swing. FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official betting partner of multiple professional sports leagues and proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. Again, FanDuel.com/lockedon or the FanDuel app. One $5 bet, win or lose, get $150 in bonus bets. No baseball midweek game. Frogs not in action on Tuesday. They'll play again this weekend against Baylor in Waco. And that's a pretty important series. Frogs currently a half game back of Baylor and UCF for the last spot in the Big 12 tournament. So Big 12 baseball now has 13 teams. Only 10 teams make the tourney. And so TCU trying to avoid completely getting left out of the postseason and at least giving themselves a chance to get some more wins after the regular season's over and qualify for the NCAA tournament. But no midweek game. They get a Tuesday off before heading down I-35 to play the Bears on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. A couple audience reactions, and then we'll just wrap up for the day. I talked yesterday about a couple of recruits that TCU landed. Tyler Jones said, awesome. James Brockermeyer is a great ad. Maybe he would make up for Dotson going in the portal. At a bare minimum, we need 8 offensive linemen to rotate. He thinks TCU has 6 or 7 that can be trusted. O-line depth is a huge problem. Yeah, I mean, they're still trying to rebuild the O-line room for I think GP staff really neglected that in his last few seasons. I agree with you. I mean, you can't, as much as you would love for things to work out like they did in 2022 where nobody missed a snap, that's just not possible with the physicality that's required on the O-line. And you got some guys like Bless Harris who have dealt with injuries in the past. But, I mean, we're talking about 6 to 8 guys that you can trust. And really, I think it's closer to 8. But Bless Harris at tackle, from an interior spot, I think you're in pretty good shape. You'll get Cade Bennett in from San Diego State in the offseason. Carson Bruno went through spring camp working at one of those guard spots. Colton Deary is there as well. James Brockermeyer now. Remington Strickland is an intriguing guy as well. He was, in the 2 deep there at Texas A&M. I mean, that's 6 guys. I think they need to land another tackle. I really think that's the issue because behind Bless, you've got kind of a toss-up. You've got Mike Nichols on the other side, Robbie Rochester maybe, Ben Taylor Whitfield. But I feel like if you add one more tackle, and you're pretty close to having 8 guys. But, yes, O-line depth has been a huge problem. I did get a chuckle. Matt Mosley called me this week. I used to do a radio show with Matt. That's kind of a name drop. I'm sorry, but maybe not to you. It sounded like it to me as it was coming out of my mouth. Anyway, he called me, and he's become good friends with Gary Patterson over the past few years, which is funny because Matt's a Baylor guy. Of course, Gary's there now. And he was saying that Gary was excited for Tyler Guyton, which he should be. I mean, Tyler Guyton was in the program, right? And I guess TCU, I believe, was the only college football offer. So they did find him. He was underscouted, undervalued because he was a basketball player primarily in high school. But he never cracked really the 2 deep at TCU. I mean, I think he made a few appearances. He did have a touchdown catch against Iowa State. Seems like at one time they tried to make him a tight end, and then they moved him back to tackle. They did see the potential, though, because I know there were guys on that staff that talked about his ability. And Then he goes to Oklahoma. And I remember when he transferred to Oklahoma, I was like, why would Oklahoma be interested in this player? Like, he hasn't played at all at TCU. And he turned himself into a really good tackle, and he ended up getting picked in the first round by the Dallas Cowboys. But overall, TCU just hasn't had a lot of success stories, on the O-line in recent years. Steve Avila had a really good season. With the Rams, that 2022 offensive line was great. But I think the depth of the O-line room, you're right, has really suffered over the past few seasons. Then Tanner McKinney said he was at the spring scrimmage. The run game and the defense impressed him the most. He said the pass game looks weak. Is the defense that good? I mean, I think hopefully with Hoover back, that's going to help. And, as I said earlier, I feel like as spring camp goes on, the defense kind of gets more acclimated to what the offense is doing. But, yeah, I mean, the offense wasn't as consistent as I would like them to be during spring practice, at least from what we heard. Hopefully that gets sorted out in the rest of the offseason. We'll be back tomorrow. It's Locked On Horned Frogs. It's your team every day.